good morning to you all. My name is Taylor Perkins. And so I want to pause for a second before we jump into talking about this project and talk for a minute, really drill down on why we do this, right? And as I'm listening to Neil, it strikes me, one thing you can say about this model is it's not the most efficient way to educate students, right? We take small groups of students and we work very closely with them at a very high faculty to student ratio. And really, our goal, I want to circle back to the mission, right, is to create the next generation of leaders in this field. And when we were looking at what we were doing with our students before the Urban Action Lab, something that jumped out at us was really starting to think about, how are students successful? What does our system define as success, at least here in the United States? How do our students get to Boston College? They get to Boston College by going through high school, where they are successful by following their teacher's instructions, by following their parents' instructions, by taking standardized tests that they study very closely for and only have one right answer. How are they successful when they get to Boston College? For the most part, you show up in the classroom, you have a syllabus that lays out your semester, you do the reading, you raise your hand enough, you write the papers, you get the grade, you do the extracurriculars, you move on. Really, you follow the rules. We juxtapose that to today's everly increasing complex and challenging world. At the time, it's not a secret, we were facing a lot of difficulties and certainly still are as a nation. And we thought, what are successful leaders? Successful leaders are adaptive, creative. Successful leaders have their own voice. They can make their own decisions. Sometimes they're tough decisions that other people disagree with. And we said, hey, we need to do something that is going to condition our students to break out of this mold of only following the rules and only doing what other people define as success and starting to be able to define success for themselves. So we created this concept of the Urban Action Lab with the goal that we were going to force students to face uncertainty, to face ambiguity, and really to focus on developing their own voice, having their own opinions, being able to back up their own opinions. And we really feel that that's critical for our students in their leadership development. From a practical standpoint, the students that we work with are almost exclusively seniors. So we see this as a capstone experience for our students. So they've taken prerequisites, they have knowledge in the field, and this is their chance really to apply it. So let's talk about the project. We've moved really from students sort of having independent projects towards working as a group. And we really feel that working as a group allows students to focus on being professionals and really, again, to develop that voice. We have vibrant discussions. We really want students to disagree. I like to tell students, if you can walk into my office and tell me the sky is red and you have the data to back that up, then that's great. You can have an A as long as you can back it up. So just to orient you on the project that we've been working with students, we're here in Massachusetts in the Northeast of the United States in the city of Boston. Zooming in here, Boston is a particularly diverse American city. The majority of the population of the city are people of African-American descent. There's a significant percentage of people who identify as Hispanic or Latino, so who would have had an origin somewhere in Latin America or South America. And for an American city, we really are a diverse but segregated population. And so we're working in a neighborhood called Dorchester that is primarily a neighborhood composed of people who are non-white and whose incomes fall below the area median income. And so we're looking at this area of Dorchester. It's a commercial business area. It's called Codman Square. The history of the area is that it was once a vibrant business district, and it is today, by most accounts, struggling. There's about 50 primarily small businesses in the area that are facing, even before the COVID pandemic, we're facing economic headwinds as consumer preferences have sort of shifted away, online shopping, Amazon.com, and many other sort of threats. So we started with a question. What's a healthy mix of retail and small business for the neighborhood? Essentially, what can we do to help revitalize this neighborhood? we worked, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, with a local nonprofit that is focused on primarily providing housing for folks, but also economic development. Neil alluded to this before, having this local partner is absolutely key. You can't do this kind of work in a meaningful way that creates leadership opportunities for students if you're not working with a local partner. We can't just come in as a university and sort of impose our will in the neighborhood. If we're actually going to create lasting change, we need to be empowering communities alongside them, versus just coming in and saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. And to that, so the goal was to co-generate a community grounded strategy, right? So we're working alongside the community. And it's a twofold. We're teaching our students how to do this, how to actually work with folks. And then we're also hopefully making a difference right now on this real world project. So I won't read all of these, but essentially we started out several semesters working closely with students to study what are the current conditions in Codman Square. The big thing that I want you to take away from this is that every one of these 7 steps, students led the way. We as the instructors were there to help to guide them, to help to sort of set ground rules, to help to set expectations collectively. But we expected the students to do the work. We taught them how to do it, and then we expected them to do it. We showed them how, what do resident surveys look like, for example, number 3. We asked questions of them, what can we figure out about this neighborhood from, publicly available data, or, what do we need to know outside of that? And then they came up with the survey. They submitted it to us. We edited it, made sure that it made sense, went a few rounds with the students. But if you take anything away from this, it's that the students lead this effort, right? We guide them, but we allow them the ability to use their own voice, honestly, to make mistakes. Becoming someone who's a leader is becoming someone who's comfortable making mistakes, figuring out what to do when you make a mistake, how to take ownership of it. And ultimately, the product that comes out, is professional because we're there to provide a scaffold to the students, but we give them the space to do the work. So this is just a little graphic that emphasizes working with the community. So we gather the data, we co-generate, which is working with the community to interpret the data, right? We don't just come in and I don't say, hey, I'm an expert from Boston College, and from what I can see right now, we need to increase police presence. It sounds like somebody maybe has an open mic. It's a lot of, okay, that's better. So, we don't come in and say, hey, we're 2 experts from Boston College, and here's what we need to do. We work with the community to interpret the data that we've gathered, to create solutions alongside the community. And we bring our students along for that. We let them take the lead. They learn how to do this. And we also create solutions in communities that are sustainable, and that are going to be, when we leave, when the Urban Action Lab moves on to our next project, it can't fall apart. We need the community to be the leaders here so that the solutions are sustainable.